Now, the question I have in my head is, are they lying to us? There's trillions of dollars that are on the verge of being signed into law from these new infrastructure bills. We've had some White House administration representatives saying that signing these trillions of dollars in bills will actually alleviate the pressure of inflation. We've had the talks about climate change and mobilizing infrastructure to be involved in that. So I wonder, are they lying to us? And I also wonder, how will all of these things specifically affect your money, inflation, and gold and silver specifically, mining stocks specifically? So today we have Mike Konnert. He's the CEO of VZLA Silver, our first ever mining stock sponsor here on the channel. It made me look fantastic because even while gold and silver is trading sideways, they've had fantastic news, getting ready to become a full producing mine. So the stocks went up exponentially while many have traded sideways. So that's VZLA Silver. We'll link that right there down below. So make sure you hit the like button on this video to send it out to the YouTube universe so more people see it. Hit the bell notification so you're notified for future videos. Give us a comment down below. Let us know, do you think that these infrastructure bills are going to be passed? Are they going to be good or bad for inflation or your money? Let us know right there down below in the comments. And it's good to see you, Mike.
Jake, it's always a pleasure. I know we've been kind of chatting over the last little while, so this is probably my last interview here before I have a pretty big life event coming up here in the next potentially few hours. So I'm glad to see you and glad to be on the show here.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Mike's wife is about to give birth to their new baby. Is that right?
Yeah, number 2.
So we're one of the last things booked on the schedule before it takes place, right?
That's right. Hopefully, otherwise, I think she'll be. She has to wait much longer. She might not be too happy. So.
Yes, agreed. So let's start it off with. There's a lot of talk about infrastructure, from many of the G7 countries, but right now in America, we're hearing a lot of talk from the Biden administration. Many representatives, they actually want 2 infrastructure bills. There's a 3.5 trillion, there's a 1 trillion. That's a lot of trillions. What is your thoughts on where this seems to be headed?
Well, I bet this is just the beginning. Why not 100 trillion? Like it doesn't matter anymore. I think it's kind of the message that I'm getting, from these stimulus and the fiscal policy that we're seeing. It's just, they're absurd numbers. I think that the stat is like, this is, what is it, 10 or 15 times the amount of intervention, government financial intervention that occurred in 2008, 2009, when there was a real, crisis. And now basically what they've done is paid people to stay home. There's no real recovery plan. There's the most open jobs in the U.S. That there basically has ever been. And, the idea now is basically to just print their way out of this issue with no real solution in sight. And so I suspect that we're going to see many, many bullish things like this happen and occur in the coming months and years, because it appears to me that there isn't really a clear plan on how to get off of this kind of, what do they call it, the heroin of the fiscal policy, right? Just kind of free money for everybody.
Yeah, there seems to be no plan. When I look at something like Pete Buttigieg went on television today, and I was telling you off air before, his exact quote was that if both infrastructure bills, so we're talking $2 trillion plus deals, 2 separate ones, he said both of them need to be passed, quote, for easing inflationary pressures. And I literally just started laughing. What are your thoughts when you're hearing this from government officials that printing it is going to ease inflation?
Well, it's like the upside down world, right? It just, that's what I mean. It doesn't really make any sense anymore. And it's gone to this hyper Keynesian theory. And, it is this kind of race to a bottom. And I think the thinking maybe from their end is that the global reserve currency status is what's going to prevent them from getting knocked out of place here. But inflation is going to be astronomical at the end of all this here. And now we're starting to see the phrasing from the Fed and Powell, rephrasing things. Oh, well, maybe it will be a little bit, less transitory. maybe we spoke a little bit too soon, and you're starting to see the walking back of the narrative, and so I'm not surprised to see these things. This is like manna from heaven, though, if you're in the industry that we're in. You don't want to wish inflation. Inflation, in its definition, is essentially evil, in that it's a tax on people's ability to provide for themselves, and it takes away people's ability to kind of create value and retain value through earnings and savings. So it's a terrible thing, but there are ways that we can prevent and protect ourselves from inflation. And if you're in gold and silver business, it's almost good news to have this type of these type of announcements, in the sense that it's it'll be good for the price of gold and silver, and it'll be good for the demand of the industrial aspects of those metals too.
Right. You hit the nail on the head. Nobody wants to see this happening. This is the same way that the Roman Empire also came down. In their time, they were debasing currency, and then everyone lost trust in the currency itself and the institutions itself. We are seeing that confidence in currency eroding, but more importantly, it appears by mass, people are losing their confidence in institutions themselves.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of common threads between the falls of empires. Do you believe that we're living in the end days of this currency empire that has been built, or no?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a hell of a lot closer to the end than the beginning. Yeah, look, there's a lot of things happening, right? That you look back and I'm quite interested in a lot of these histories and the transition, basically, from if you look back to Russia and France and in those revolutions in the past, and transition from I guess serfdom and things like that into communism, and there's a lot of parallels between that. There's a lot of parallels between the end of the Roman Empire. This appears to me to be a lot of the symptoms that you see. This, you also kind of notice the kind of the over this extreme wokeness and cultural moderating, regulating, taking away freedoms in some aspects. These are all things that you see kind of at the end of an empire, from what I've researched and read. And but the biggest thing, of course, is the currency, hyperinflation in currency and debasement of currency, and that is exactly what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, what's interesting is it's hard to get a gauge on how bad inflation is, if this is really going to be a hyperinflationary thing that could truly destroy the stability of society, or is this just a blip? And just before our call, my wife Ashley grabbed me and she said, "Look at our bill." And our electricity bill is always about it's always about 200, 250. We live where it's hot, the AC's on. But it's always about the same. It's always within 10, 15 bucks. The thermostat's set to the same all the time. Now, I don't know if there was an accident, but it went up dramatically in 1 month. And I don't know if they reset new price. I have no idea. But we're seeing everything from Chipotle and McDonald's offering, huge hourly boosts. And we're seeing all around people increasing prices on just about everything. Where do you think that this velocity of inflation increasing exponentially, where do you think it stops, or does it stop?
Well, that's a good question. I guess it never really can stop, right? I don't know if you can go back and look historically and seen an end to it. I guess there's just a new structure that comes around the currency at that point in time. But I guess what is interesting is we've had this conversation in the past about why bother on silver and gold if they're being manipulated, and we've had this crazy inflation and there are hints towards inflation, and we're seeing prices rise, but gold and silver's down as well. And I think one of the things is, this will probably be the case until it isn't, and we'll start to see the price of these metals really start to take off here. But the thing is that even in a manipulated metal, eventually the power of the markets and the power of the masses will kind of clue in, and we'll get that momentum, I think, on the precious metals. As a matter of fact, it feels like it's just about started here. We're starting to see some of the miners lead the metal, Newmont, for example, recently, and the price of gold and silver going up. So, I don't know where this inflation ends or what it looks like when it ends. All I know is that, it's here, it's happening. It's probably not transitory, and it's certainly good for the metals that we invest in.
I used to think that people would start to wake up and there would be a gradual shift in the monetary system and how that affects gold and silver. And honestly, now that I look at it and the level of the propaganda and the level of control over the system and just the control over an arbitrary price that they say, or arbitrary metric that they say is inflation, just even that, when they say, oh, it's only up 5%, it's not that bad, when it's really not. So when they have that type of control, I almost feel like it's going to be a bomb that pops that nobody realizes has popped until it pops. And at that point, you really actually are going to get to a place where you're going to see a quantum leap in the price of everything. Especially in an asset like gold or silver that has been actually suppressed in price. Mm-hmm. And, this is why obviously I really like mining stocks and why I'm so high on gold, silver. But tell us why specifically silver's always been your place of focus and what you're most excited about.
Well, and the other thing, I was actually looking this morning and I was taking some time to Actually, there's a couple of things. I was listening to a podcast with Stephen Harper, the old Prime Minister of Canada, which, basically led Canada through the downturn of 2008 and 2009 and didn't have to take any of the drastic measures that the U.S. did or other economies around the world. It was very, very strongly managed and did an excellent job during this crisis, basically. And, one of the things that he drew parallels to was the 70s. And I had another conversation with a very intelligent investor the day before, and he mentioned being involved in this industry during the last boom, which was the 70s and the movement of gold off into kind of the free hands of the market, and then some other catalysts that kind of recalibrated the price of gold. And during that time, gold went up exponentially many, many times. And silver did as well. As a matter of fact, silver went, it's gone up 10 times in the past in price movements. And a lot of people draw parallels to this situation that we're in right now to a couple of periods of time. One is the 70s, and then the other, I guess, is the dot-com cycle and boom and bust, and then the kind of early 2000s onward to the 2011 high. Now, the reason I like silver is because it performs the best out of the metals there. It performs the best out of the precious metals. It has the characteristics of the precious metals. We all know that it's easier to have a silver coin if you're preparing for disaster. Silver coin is going to be more transportable in the sense of you can take it and buy things, with that, or you could be a little bit more. Silver coins have a few more capabilities over a big block of gold, or it's less denomination, things like that. But the real attractiveness to me of silver is that it has the characteristics of precious metals, but also industrial metals. And so when we're talking about end of empire stuff, inflation, crazy fiscal policy, unprecedented money printing, but that unprecedented money printing is going to green economy, which is directly impacts the silver economy. I mean, that's just like it's an answer to prayer in a sense. It's pretty wild to think that you can first of all that I'm in the business of finding a huge supply of silver, have the potential to be in production with our project in Mexico, but I've never seen a setup for a metal quite like this. And in all of the history that I've studied, and this could be something that we've never even seen before in terms of the severity of the move. And we've already seen silver go from close to $10 to $25, almost to 30 in the last year or so. I think that's just the beginning. Unfortunately, when you're in it day to day, it's a little bit more grueling, and it feels more painful when it's not moving. But when we zoom back out and see where silver's gone already, and where I think it is going to go, it could be incredible. It could be adding $100 to the price of silver, and that would be considered not crazy. So I think silver is just the best way to play it.
Now, for those that don't know, you're CEO of VZLA Silver. You're our first sponsor on the channel. And when you and I first talked, you were like, "Hey, I've got this real vision. We're going to become this big producer, and we actually are going to exercise our options to turn this into a mine." And a lot of companies reach out to me because of the size of the channel, and everybody kind of has a good talk, and you really have executed. And you're one of the stocks that's actually up substantially, while most are sideways or down, with silver trading down. So give us an update on what's going on with VZLA Silver. I know since we spoke last, you have even more exciting news.
Yeah, so VZLA Silver is a really unique company in the sense that we have the team, the project, and kind of the vision and the energy to execute on something that very few people have the opportunity to do. And I'm more and more convinced that this is kind of one of those once in a career opportunities to have a district like this in Mexico. And so the quick 20-second background is that in 2018 we consolidated this district in Sinaloa, entered into two what seemed to be kind of large property payment options at the time, and we were basically able to explore the property and then exercise the options, put together a resource on the property, and move into production. So we just exercised those options. We did a $43 million US deal. Part of that compensation for the vendors was in stock. So that was a huge thing that frankly, a lot of people didn't think we were going to be able to do. So we just did that. Prior to that closing of the options and owning the property 100%, we've raised over $110 million for the company since inception. So, that's a fair chunk of money, and the ability for that money to create value has been spectacular in the sense of the work that we've been doing to find silver. And as I said, we're just getting started with these fiscal policy and infrastructure investment. I feel like we're just getting started here with VZLA as well. The next steps are basically to put out a large resource, move towards production, and then really just execute on the business plan of becoming a major silver producer in Mexico.
Yeah, it's one I have a lot of shares in that I'm very excited in, and maybe it'll help me get a legacy ranch for my daughter one day. But to get to that level, it has to become a mine. And one of the areas that Lobo from Independent Speculator that worked with Doug Casey so long, I believe he calls it the pre-production sweet spot, when it's going to be producing, and that's when generally they make the biggest gains. Silvercrest, Mag, a couple examples of that. What do we need to do to get to that next level? What's on the plate now that you did that $43 million exercise deal? What's next to truly get to that level that you've originally told me the first time we met was your vision?
Yeah. So, the big thing here is essentially we need to put a proper resource around what we have there on the Napoleon and the Tajitos vein. That's something that we'll announce probably sometime in early 2022. Moving on from that, we can do economic studies basically, and we have a permitted operating mill that we've just purchased. And basically what we can do is take that and start producing from that mill faster than any other company. You mentioned Silvercrest and others in Mexico. We basically shave that 3 to 5 years of permitting and construction off of our timeline by exercising these options. So it's going to be an exciting ride. We're going to have a hell of a lot of news coming out of the company over the next 12 months and onward. It's just, it's one of the most exciting and certainly the most aggressive exploration programs in Mexico right now for silver. And the size of the prize at the end is huge. This is a district that compares to all the famous silver fields in Mexico in size, and something that has never been explored with modern techniques.
Fantastic, making it happen. So that's VZLA Silver. Now let's move on to lockdowns. Do you think new lockdowns are coming, and how would they affect gold, silver, the broader markets, and mining stocks?
Well, I guess. Well, I don't know if I think they've already come in a lot of places in Europe, and I was talking to a friend saying that they expect Germany to lock down again shortly here. I don't know about Canada, Ontario. I think Ontario still is locked down. BC, we're still a little bit luckier. But here's the thing. They're talking again about that 2008, 2009. They basically printed money to fix the situation, to get the economy back on track. Basically, people knew that there was a solution to kind of get back to work. Now they're printing money to get people not to work, which is kind of a crazy thing, if you think about that. So we're kind of promising everybody as a society, we're saying, look, you don't have to contribute, but don't change your way of life. We've got this here. You just sit at home. It's kind of having your cake and eat it too. And it's giving, I think, this society broadly a feeling of, well, that they can have everything that they want, don't have to work for, which is really just, it's going to have the public demanding more free stuff basically going forward. So all that I think is pointing to inflationary, triggers and catalysts. And so I just don't see how Western civilization basically comes out of this crisis without, a further step, let's say, to the left and to government intervention and support. And maybe it's even UBI or something like that to, I don't know. I don't want to get too far into all of this, but I think I've mentioned to you in the past as well that I wouldn't be surprised that in, the next 5 or 10 years, we start to see lockdowns for climate change, or, pointing back to these lockdowns, and people will say, well, look, the carbon footprint was smaller then. Why don't we lock people down a month a year or something like that? And I think, and of all the places, I think probably Vancouver is the place that will originate. So, I don't see that there's ever going to be, I think this is kind of an unboxed something that's could be potentially a precedent for future government intervention, government spending, basically to support their, the public. So, yeah, I don't know. I could probably see more lockdowns coming.
How do you think it would affect the broader markets and gold and silver and mining stocks? Do you think that it's met with a new wall of money that pushes another leg up? Do you think that it creates a disinflationary collapse, or do you think the new lockdowns are met with a wall of money? Stay in your house, and we promise we'll do another trillion or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's the stimmies. I think you have to do that, and who knows? Maybe this time that money will find its way more into precious metals rather than Dogecoin and Bitcoin and all that stuff, NFTs and whatnot.
So on the subject of climate change lockdowns, this is something that Klaus Schwab, he's the head of the World Economic Forum. He wrote a book called the COVID-19, The Great Reset. But the book is really about how to basically create this new system, if you want to call it that, using climate specifically, right? So they actually talk about these subjects. And there's been many reports and that have been floated out about the necessity of future climate change lockdowns. And one of the things that the Biden administration has discussed, which to me is terrifying, is climate change corps. Is basically like a civilian infantry of climate change corps. And this has been floated as part of the infrastructure, the spending to prepare these types of things. And so to me, it shows that that's going to be an area of focus for many of these G7 countries. So what effect would this Green New Deal dystopian save you from climate change world have on silver specifically?
Well, the effect would price would go up. I think, but it's interesting because what you just said there is actually exactly what it's an example of the government intervening, and it's like, okay, well, we don't want to incentivize through a free market companies like, let's say, Tesla. If you like the electric vehicle model, where they you give the free market and the right to the ability to finance and build a company that lowers oil and gas consumption, let's say, right? If that's part of your plan. It used to be in the past, people used to incentivize entrepreneurship to solve these problems. Now they're disincentivizing entrepreneurship by more regulations and intervention with the government, and they're paying people from the government payroll to solve these problems, right? That's a example of what kind of mutates out of these lockdowns and paying people not to work. Is, okay, well, if we pay you not to work, well, now we'll pay you to go and enforce this kind of Green New Deal, or be the foot soldiers behind it all. I guess I don't know. I didn't know too much about it, but anything like that is it's unfortunate, but it'll be good for the price of silver.
Why?
Inflation, printing money for that. And also, whatever they're trying to enforce is going to need a hell of a lot of silver to make it. Solar panels, electric vehicles, all that is consuming silver.
So, tell me a little bit about mines coming online and the anticipated increase in demand in silver, especially if, let's say, that these whole Green New Deal things go through and solar panels are mandated, and everyone has to have an electric car, and it goes to the extreme side of the pendulum. How quickly does it take to get a silver mine online? How many new mines are coming online, and how does VZLA fit into what's VZLA's unique value proposition in that conversation?
Yeah, well, most of the production in the world is, for silver, basically is going to come from, or primary silver at least, is going to come from Mexico. So Mexico is the major supplier of silver, basically, in new mines. In Mexico, there's really two stories. There's Silvercrest and there's Meg Silver coming online here. So, the silver universe is very small. There's not a lot of companies out there that are putting mines online. VZLA could very well be the next one in Mexico and in that queue. And the reason for that, of course, is that we're basically moving towards that resource, but we've exercised the option. We're going to have that 100% owned and permitted operating mill. But globally, it's very difficult to permit mines. It takes 3 to 5 years, let's say, to on a fast track to permit and build mines. The other place that silver comes from is byproducts of copper mines in South America. And I don't know if you've seen what's going on in Peru and Chile and all these other countries that are famous for their big copper mines, which would produce a lot of byproduct silver. But that's all looks like it's moving towards nationalization and communism. And I think the president of Peru, is basically taking a page out of the Venezuelan handbook. And we know how well that went for oil and gas and gold and everything in Venezuela. So we're eliminating some of the supply there that could happen from large porphyries that have byproduct silver. The queue of projects in Mexico that can make a difference is really small, and VZLA's top, it's right in there. So we're in a great position. We're basically, VZLA is a company that can make a difference. This mining cycle, this precious metal cycle, we can be supplying silver through our production. So now the demand like you said, is growing every day basically, and the incentive that green technologies are getting through the Green New Deal and these stimulus packages or fiscal packages is only going to improve that.
When Elon Musk has tweeted about cobalt shortages or trying to get a cobalt mine or different types of commodities, he's mentioned a few of them between his various enterprises with solar and with electric vehicles. Why do you believe that he hasn't mentioned silver?
It's a good question. I don't know how much he really knows about it. I suspect that silver is going to become far more topical in the coming while here. But I know he's talked about nickel, but I think nickel is probably the biggest pinch point for him. Silver, maybe he's trying to come up with a strategy. He doesn't want any competitors.
So give us your, as we wrap up here, give us your outlook and predictions on looking forward at stock market, at metals, at inflation. How do you think, if it's 12 months from now, it's beginning of August right now, August next year, what are we looking at?
I think we've broken $50 in silver. I think gold's far higher. I think copper, nickel, all the rest of the commodities are have gone up in price. And I don't know about that. I could see that there may be a shock to the broader markets, the secular markets, but I think all that's going to be a positive for the business that we're in here. And I think VIZSLA's higher.
So right there down below, we got the website to VIZSLA Silver, traded in OTC in the United States as well as in Canada. If you've been an investor in VIZSLA, and when we first announced them as a sponsor, and you're probably sitting pretty good. So let us know in the comments right there down below. Go VIZSLA, go, or let us know if you're happy so far. Make sure you hit the like button on this video to send it out into the YouTube universe so more people see it. And Mike, any last words?
Well, thank you. I always enjoy these interviews, and I look forward to the next one.
All right. Well, everyone, send in Mike and his family lots of positive energy as they bring their new baby into the world here, hopefully by the time that this video is released. And thank you for watching today's episode. Make sure you hit the bell notification, get notified for new videos. Make sure you share this on social media, text it to a friend. Many of the top finance channels pay YouTube to pop up in the top of the algorithm. So if you think we do good job, important work, one of the ways to support, hit that like button, give us a comment down below, and share this video with someone. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out VIZSLA Silver right there down below. We'll see you next time.